industrial complex, the fossil fuel companies, they all want to go into Venezuela and steal the oil because Venezuela has twice the amount of oil as Saudi Arabia. So that's a big deal. And so they're now manufacturing consent for this war in Venezuela, or this coup. So they try to do a coup, and then they'll do a war or an invasion. And this isn't anything new. And even going back to the first war in Iraq in 1991, they lied us into it. So the country wasn't for the war, us going to the Kuwait, right? So Iraq invaded Kuwait, and they said they were slant drilling. And so we said okay, pretty much said okay that Saddam could do it. And then when he did it, we were like, we're going to go. So watch. So this guy from a documentary in Canada, they documented this. So then they had they had to do propaganda. So the Kuwaiti ambassador's daughter gave false testimony in Congress on national TV that Iraqi soldiers were taking babies out of their incubators and throwing them on the ground. And then everybody in the United States was like, oh my God, let's go. We have to go help those people. That's how he got war. And he documents it. Watch.
Iraq attacks Kuwait, claiming the Kuwaitis are slant drilling into Iraq's oil fields. U.S. President George Herbert Walker Bush pushes for a land war against Iraq. But polls show the U.S. public is split 50-50 on that idea. Then comes this eyewitness testimony before a congressional committee from a 15-year-old Kuwaiti girl. The claim is she cannot be identified for fear of reprisals.
While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators. Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor.
The U.S. public is outraged. The result? Support for land war zooms. It's a turning point. Desert Storm is launched. 135,000 Iraqis are killed. An estimated 1 million Iraqis, many of them children and old people, then die as a result of 10 years of sanctions. One small problem. There never were any incubator baby deaths, not one. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's investigative flagship program, The Fifth Estate, reveals the girl to be the Kuwaiti ambassador's daughter, given her lines and coached in acting by the giant American PR firm Hill & Knowlton. It's one phase in a $10 million joint U.S.-Kuwaiti campaign of deception. This man is lying.
I myself buried 14 newborn babies that had been taken from their incubators.
This man is lying.
And they had kids in incubators, and they were thrown out of the incubators so that Kuwait could be systematically dismantled.
There were a lot of people who participated in a conspiracy. Yes, an out-and-out conspiracy of fake organizations, false documents, fraud, and disinformation. So, if a new man named Bush is in the White House and helps engineer a brazen deception in order to achieve global geopolitical goals, as well as domestic and personal ones, it wouldn't be a first, would it?
No, it wouldn't. So now you see how this works? That's the first. That's how they did it before the internet. So now, here's a young lady coming on Fox News to tell you about Venezuela. You ready?
You know, my mother left Venezuela in the 80s because under Hugo Chavez, the president, not dictator of the country, socialism was rampant and it was ruining the country.
I'm sorry, when did your mother leave?
You know, my mother left Venezuela in the 80s because under Hugo Chavez.
That's weird because Chavez won his first election in 1998. So they can't even lie straight. They can't even get their lie. My mother left because Chavez in the 80s, Chavez wasn't elected until 1988. So do you see what they do? They get these people who never lived in Venezuela, who are in America, to go on and say, I'm Venezuelan and my mom this, and it's hard. These are the people they bring on. They don't bring on people who have a counter narrative to Donald Trump. These are the people who they bring on. This guy's funny. He goes, guys, wait, there's a logical reason to all of this. She saw through time itself and saw the perils of the Chavista menace and ran away from her country a decade before it ever happened. So what's really going on in Venezuela is we told you what's happening, and they've been trying to overthrow the socialist government in Venezuela ever since they got elected. They did it once before, 2002. And it's because the socialist government raised people out of poverty, made literacy a thing. Now, raised their literacy, also built millions of housing, of apartments for their homeless. Everybody health care. So, and we can't have that. You know, Venezuela used to give oil subsidies to people in the United States. Did you know that? Yeah. They had a program to help the poor people in America who couldn't afford heating oil in the winter. Venezuela would supply it for them, for poor people in the United States, because our government didn't. So right now they have Juan Guaido. Juan Guaido is the CIA puppet who Trump wants to take over Venezuela, and he's ready to open up the oil industry to American and British oil companies. That's what this is all about. That's what this has always been about. They have twice as much oil as Saudi Arabia. So the New York Times did it. They had this Johanna Hausman, and apparently she's a comedian. I don't know her. Grammy never.
Nope, don't know her.
So apparently she's a comedian, and they had her do the New York Times produced this op-ed of her doing CIA propaganda about going into Venezuela. And I'll show you a little bit of it. Here's a little bit of it.
There is total chaos in Venezuela. Hunger, lack of medicine, and latest, nearly the whole country had a blackout.
Okay, and see, she never tells you any of the reasons for any of those things, and she makes you think it's because of socialism or Maduro or Chavista. It's because the United States and Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is overproducing oil and knocked oil's prices down from $100 to down to like $28 a barrel now. And then the United States puts sanctions on. Just like with Iraq, those sanctions aren't there to bring democracy to the people. They're there to bring a country to its knees so we can then steal their natural resources. So that's what we're creating these economic problems in Venezuela, the United States, by our sanctions. The rapporteur on Venezuela, the UN rapporteur, said that our sanctions rise to the level of a war crime, what we're doing in Venezuela. That's the UN's rapporteur. That it's a human rights violation. What we're killing people, it's our sanctions that is causing. And how did the power go out? This op-ed is a lie, and it's pro-coup, pro-invasion, pro-Trump narrative in Venezuela.
So the conversation in the States focuses on what Trump is doing about Venezuela, and rumors are spreading that the U.S. is considering military intervention.
All options are open.
And again, Maduro, she says, is a Trump is corrupted by a tyrannical dictator.
Loves authoritarians, but this time it seems like it's the liberals who are siding with one. Now, I am not a pro-Trump military hawk.
So in Venezuela, Trump is for getting rid of Maduro, and she says, oh my God, the liberals are siding with a strongman dictator, Maduro. But if you're siding with Trump, you're also siding with Trump. What? I'm told Trump is a puppet of a foreign enemy, a hostile state, that he's a traitor to our country. So he's not now? Again, their logic is backwards and upside down and inside out, and this is guilt by association, and they have this woman who's a comedian tries to be cute about it. This is how you do cute propaganda, I guess.
For reference, my spirit animal is Ruth Bader Ginsburg in workout clothes. But this movement is dangerously glorifying a brutal dictator and promoting inaction.
No, we're not glorifying a brutal dictator. What we're doing is we're not codifying the pretext, the CIA's bullshit pretext for invasion or a coup, and that's what you're doing. How many dictators allow their opposition leader to hold rallies in the middle of the state capitol? Okay. Again, they had elections. The opposition didn't participate. It was the Maduro wanted to have the UN come in and certify their election. Previously, the Carter administration had said their elections were some of the best. The people who have horrible elections are us.
is the worst combination.
And by the way, if you're really worried about poor people in another country, she said, so she's doing that thing of, oh, I don't want invasion, but we have to help them. We can't do nothing. If you really cared about poor people, turn your head to the right and look out your window, because there's a tent city right outside it. If you're in New York City, there's a tent city right out. And if you're in D.C., there's people eating out of a fucking garbage can right now. So there are more people living in poverty in the United States than there are people in Venezuela. So anybody in the United States who says we have to help people in Venezuela, before they help, they'll step over a dead baby in the United States so they can go give aid to somebody in an oil-rich country. You get what I'm saying? Because that's what this is.
For ordinary Venezuelans. First off, if you look closely at these protests, it's very unlikely you'll bump into, an actual Venezuelan.
So now she's being snarky about people doing protests in the United States against our United States government intervening in Venezuela. And now she's going to show video of it and said, these people aren't even from Venezuela. Yeah, because they're doing protests against our government in our country. Watch this.
Where are you from? Where am I from? Yeah. Here. Where are you from? Philadelphia. Where are you from?
Where are you from? Philadelphia. I don't know if you see what it says there in the corner. This is a protest in Philadelphia. And this is evidence that she's using to show this is a bogus rally because these people aren't from Venezuela who are protesting against our government's involvement in Venezuela in Philadelphia. Again, This is what you call gaslighting. Another term for this is being deceptive and lying. This is pushing a false narrative.
Trust me, if this was an actual Venezuelan protest, it might look more like this.
Yeah, that's in Venezuela, not Philadelphia. You see the difference? And now these same pricks are trying to get back control of the government at the behest of the CIA and Donald Trump and British Petroleum. They're all trying to, that's why the UK froze their gold. They have billions of dollars in gold Venezuela has, and they took it from them because Venezuela won't give their oil to British Petroleum. And this is the stuff they don't tell you. And he's trying, and he also says Ricardo Hausmann is the economic advisor to Trump-appointed Venezuelan coup leader Juan Guaido. He is the coup regime's delegate to the Inter-American Development Bank and is playing a leading role in the attempt to privatize Venezuela's oil industry. Yeah, I think that's kind of important to tell when you have a comedian that the New York Times is amplifying and making a video of to do propaganda, regime change, pro-Trump regime change, CIA propaganda. I think it's pretty important that we know all that about her background. Otherwise, you're doing what they call journalistic malfeasance, which is what the New York Times and the Washington Post, CNN do on the regular. It's not about the U.S. overthrowing a government. It's about a country being raped and killed by a narco-dictator asking for international help. Sometimes the U.S. is not the center of the universe. Yeah, you know how we like to help people in other countries because they're poor? You know how we're helping people in Yemen right now die through a genocide we're helping Saudi Arabia commit? We don't even give a shit about poor people in our own country, let alone another country. And this guy's trying to gaslight. Okay, doesn't take brains. You know what it takes? It takes not being bought by the people you're supposed to be investigating and exposing. I'm not bought by anybody, so I get to tell the truth. And my dad doesn't work for a CIA regime change puppet. I don't have those conflicts of interest. I grew up poor. My dad was a poor cop with 12 kids. I went to state college.